just looking at the summary of what your team had put together vis-a-vis this data, yes, there has been a slight sentiment improvement, but your conclusion is the German economy's recovery still remains weak.
Yes, there is a slight improvement, but it's very small. And what we see in the data, if we take a closer look, is that companies are telling us the current business situation is really flat. It's not changing. It continues to be weak. So what's improving is the expectation component mostly. And this has been going on for a couple of months now. So it seems that companies are telling us, yes, we do expect the German government to spend a lot more. We have these debt finance funds and we'll benefit from that. But that's something for the future. And currently things are not really improving. And that's what we see in the data. So this is companies are mostly hoping for things to get better. But if we look at order intake and other current indicators, hard facts, we're not there yet.
Yeah, I was reading somewhere that another economics research institute that the number of insolvencies out of German companies has hit the highest since 2005. Are there any particular industries that stand out to you in the survey that are struggling more than others?
I mean, what we see is that some of the key industries continue to struggle, the chemical industry, the car industry. We also see some positive signs. The investment goods industry, which was in difficulties for some time, here things are improving. But again, it's mostly the expectations component. What they seem to hope is that a lot of companies will start increasing capacities to be ready when all this government spending comes. For instance, construction companies are increasingly buying machinery to be ready when the government spends more. But as I said, it's mostly expectations. We have seen difficulties in the construction industry up to now, especially when it comes to building houses and apartments. Here, this is a sector that has been very weak. And continues to be so despite these spending programs.
Yeah. Earlier on in the show, we were speaking to my colleague in Brussels about von der Leyen coming out to defend the trade deal that the EU had agreed with the U.S. You yourself, you put up a post on X when the deal was agreed saying the trade deal is a humiliation for the EU, but it reflects the imbalance of power. The Europeans need to wake up, focus more on economic strength, and reduce their military and technological dependence on the U.S. So I take it the Ifo Institute is not a fan of this trade deal. What would you have been looking for?
Well, what I was trying to say is it's probably the best we could get. It really does. It's a humiliation, but it does reflect the realities of the imbalance, the power imbalance between the United States and the European Union. The European countries depend on the U.S. for their defense. So there wasn't much, I think, von der Leyen could do. So if you look at this from this perspective, I think the deal could have been worse, indeed, but that doesn't change the fact that it's a bad deal. It just reflects the power imbalance, and we need to work on that. I think it makes little sense to complain about this deal or to ask for a better deal if you're weak. That's reflected in what you can negotiate.
Yeah. Net, though, do you still think that this trade deal and where we're ending up, which is around 15% with some lack of clarity about specific industries, will that still pose a drag to the German economy?
Well, it does pose a drag because it's worse than what we had before. Still, I think the German economy, German exporters can live with that. Of course, it will be important what happens to the car industry. That's one of the sectors where there's still uncertainty. Will they also get the 15%? German companies will be able to live with that. Interestingly, what we see in the survey today is that uncertainty perceived by firms hasn't declined. One would think, okay, with the trade deal, companies will say at least the uncertainty is gone, but companies don't say that. And I think that reflects that companies don't really trust this deal. Donald Trump has shown repeatedly that he may change his mind very quickly. And that's reflected in these numbers. And that also reduces the value of this deal.
Yeah. What about the fiscal backdrop situation in Germany? The chancellor has unveiled a big fiscal stimulus that channeled towards defense infrastructure. And then, of course, you have the big Made in Germany initiative with some key industries and industry players participating, looking to participate and invest. Is that going to move the needle for the German economy?
I think it will move the needle probably next year. The question is this just a flash in the pan? Will this be a short-term effect, or will this be sustainable? And it will only be sustainable if this is complemented with structural reforms. Friedrich Merz has said that repeatedly, so he wants to have his government enact a couple of structural reforms, labor market reforms, deregulation, spending cuts, to be able to cut taxes further to really get this going. Debt-financed fiscal impulse is a short-term thing, and for that to translate in a durable effect, we need these other reforms. And incurring public debt is relatively easy politically. Structural reforms are much more difficult, are much more demanding, and the question is, will the government deliver on that side as well?
Yeah, we had the GDP figures come out on Friday, again disappointing to the downside with that minus 0.3% annualized figure for the second quarter. In the absence of the reforms that you speak of, is there optimism for Germany to actually start posting positive GDP numbers in the coming months, coming quarters?
I think, yes, we will see more positive GDP numbers simply because the government will spend more. But as I said, this could be a short-term effect. And if there are no further reforms forthcoming, a lot of that will also go into prices. So without structural reforms, the effects will be relatively small and they will be transitory. So it's really key that the government comes up with the structural reforms to complement this fiscal expansion. Then we would have a promising package.